Right in the middle of Japan, high up on the mountains, an old man lived in his little house. He was very proud of it and never tired of admiring the whiteness of his straw mats and the pretty papered walls, which in warm weather always did slip back, so that the smell of the trees and flowers might come in. One day he was standing, looking at the mountain opposite, when he heard a kind of rumbling noise in the room behind him. He turned round, and in the corner he beheld a rusty old iron kettle, which could not have seen the light of day for many years. How the kettle got there the old man did not know, but he took it up and looked over it carefully, and when he found that it was quite whole, he cleaned the dust off it and carried it into his kitchen. "That was a piece of luck," he said, smiling to himself. "A good kettle costs money, and it is well to have a second one at hand in case of need. Mine is getting worn out, and the water is already beginning to come through its bottom." Then he took the other kettle off the fire, filled the new one with water, and put it in its place. No sooner was the water in the kettle getting warm than a strange thing happened, and the man who was standing by thought he must be dreaming. First the handle of the kettle gradually changed its shape and became a head, and the spout grew into a tail, while out of the body sprang 4 paws, and in a few minutes the man found himself watching not a kettle but a tanuki. The creature jumped out the fire and bounded about the room like a kitten, running up the walls and over the ceiling, till the old man was in agony lest his pretty room should be spoilt. He cried to a neighbor for help, and between them they managed to catch the tanuki and shut him safely in a wooden chest. Then, quite exhausted, they sat down on the mats and consulted together what they should do with this troublesome beast. At length they decided to sell him, and bade a child who was passing send them a certain tradesman called Jimmu. When Jimmu arrived, the old man told him that he had something he wished to get rid of, and lifted the lid of the wooden chest, where he had shut up the tanuki. But, to his surprise, no tanuki was there, nothing but the kettle he found in the corner. It was certainly very odd, but the man remembered what had taken place in the fire, and did not want to keep the kettle any more, so after a little bargaining about the price, Jimmu went away carrying the kettle with him. Now, Jimmu had not gone very far before he had felt that the kettle was getting heavier and heavier, and by the time he reached home he was so tired that he was thankful to put it down on the corner of his room, and then forgot all about it. In the middle of the night, however, he was awakened by a loud noise in the corner where the kettle stood, and raised himself up in bed to see what it was. But nothing was there except the kettle, which seemed quite enough. He thought he must have been dreaming, and fell asleep again, only to be roused a second time by the same disturbance. He jumped up and went to the corner, and by the light of the lamp that he always kept burning, he saw that the kettle had become a tanuki, which was running round after his tail. After he grew weary of that, he ran on the balcony, where he turned several somersaults from pure gladness of heart. The tradesman was much troubled as what to do with the animal, and it was only towards morning that he managed to get any sleep, but when he opened his eyes again, there was no tanuki, only the old kettle he left there the night before. As soon as he had tidied his house, Jimmu set off to tell his story to a friend next door. The man listened quietly, and did not appear so surprised as Jimmu expected, for he recollected having heard in his youth something about a wonder-working kettle. "Go and travel with it and show it off," said he, "and you'll become a rich man. But be careful first to ask the tanuki's leave, and also to perform some magic ceremonies to prevent him from running away at the sight of the people." Jimmu thanked his friend for his counsel, which he followed exactly. The tanuki's consent was obtained, a booth was built, and a notice was hung up outside of it, inviting people to come and witness the most wonderful transformation that was ever seen. They came in crowds, and the kettle was passed from hand to hand, and they were allowed to examine it all over, and then look inside. Then Jimmu took it back, and setting it on the platform, commanded it to become a tanuki. In an instant the handle began to change to a head, and the spout into a tail, while the 4 paws appeared at the sides. "Dance!" said Jimmu, and the tanuki did his steps, and moved first on one side and then on the other, till the people could not stand still any longer, and began to dance too. Gracefully he led the fan dance, and glided without a pause to the shadow dance and the umbrella dance, and it seemed as if he might go on dancing forever. And so very likely he would, if Jimmu had not declared he had danced enough, and the booth must now be closed. Day after day the booth was so full it was hardly possible to enter it, and what the neighbor foretold had come to pass, and Jimmu was a rich man. Yet he did not feel happy. He was an honest man, and he thought he owed some of his wealth to the man from whom he had bought the kettle. So, one morning he put 100 gold pieces into it, and hanging the kettle once more on his arm, he returned to the seller of it. "I have no right to keep it any longer," he added, when he ended his tale, "so I have brought it back to you, and inside you'll find 100 gold pieces as the price of its hire." The man thanked Jimmu, and said that few people who had been honest as he, and the kettle brought them both luck. Everything went well with them until they died, which they did when they were very old, respected by everyone.